maestro.
Define your job. That's a good question. It's difficult to define my job because different people ask me to do different things. Basically, I started as a corporate photographer. Then I became a corporate identity communications director. I was a counselor for IBM, Dow Chemical, and then that led me into corporate identity, led me into brand identity. Brand identity led me into consumer culture. And so now I make videos, I do branded content, I do photography, and especially I do strategy in communications, more or less.
Vuoi farla così o verso qua? Com'è che? Perché avevi detto che la volevi fare non verso la camera.
No, lo faccio dentro la camera.
Ah, ok.
What time do you start your day? That's a good question. When do I start my day? I start my day waking up. Sometimes I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Usually never beyond 6 o'clock. And that's when I do my best thinking, when I wake up. At 4 or 5 o'clock, I really, really think well. At 6 o'clock, I'm still thinking well. At 7 o'clock, I forget half the things I thought about. And at 8 o'clock, I have to start writing everything down or I'll forget everything. So I start my day pretty early. I go to bed pretty early because I think well in the morning. I don't think well at night. So that's the answer. Do you make a to-do list before you start your work? Yes, I do. I make a to-do list before I start working, so I won't forget that day what I have to do. Since there's usually so many different things to do in a day, and they're different because they have to do with different capabilities, and some have to do with directly my clients, some have to do with production, some have to do with post-production, some have to do with whatever. So I have to make a list. And then each time I work on something, I look at the list and I do what I feel better about doing right away. I put off the things that are difficult, and as long as they're on that list, that day I try to do them. And then I check them off every time. Next question. Is it stressful to manage work, family, and social life? Is it stressful to manage work, family, and social life? Any tips? Yeah, it's very difficult to manage work, family, and social life. Usually, if you love what you do, which I do, and I love my family, which is the biggest conflict of working and being with the family, I don't have a social life. Zero. My social life is basically being involved with my work, and every now and then I'll see somebody. I love seeing people. I just don't have any time. Any tips? Try to organize specific times of your day to do something in, or you will never do it. I have great difficulty keeping my days organized. Great difficulty. So I'm not the right person to ask for tips because I'm lousy at what I do. How do you manage any change in your plans? How do I manage any change in my plans? Well, my plans get changed about 100 times a day. So I'm used to it. I don't manage it. I simply live through it. I figure I'll concentrate on what I'm doing. I ignore everything else while I'm doing something. When I'm completed that task, I've completed that thought, I've completed that analysis, then I'll move on to the next question. Otherwise, you're overwhelmed with the complexities of things to do all at once. So you make up a list in your head or you write it down, and I concentrate very specifically on one thing. And I really forget all the rest while I'm doing that one thing. It's the same thing when I go to bed at night. It takes me about 15 seconds to fall asleep. I lie down and I let myself go and I'm asleep. I stop thinking. So that is how I deal with changes in my plans. Canceled meetings, changes in deadlines. Canceled meetings, changing in deadlines. Canceled meetings are always a blessing because it gives me time to do things that I didn't have time to do, which is usually always. So any canceled meeting for me is, thank God they canceled. Moving deadlines. If you're moving them farther away, that's great. If you're making them closer, that sucks. So moving deadlines towards me, no. Moving deadlines farther away, great. Cancel all the meetings you want because it gives me time to think. And that's the most precious time I need. What is the key to success in working as a team? Do you prefer working alone? Working as a team is very difficult. The success in working at a team is always having a method to developing ideas, and you stop developing ideas at a specific point. You say, we're going to develop ideas for 1 hour. And after 1 hour, you stop developing ideas and you judge them. And the whole group judges them. And everyone gives a grade to the ideas. And then you move on with the ideas which get the best grades. If you brainstorm, you get nothing done. You just end up going in circles with great ideas. Working in a team needs structure, and it needs a team manager, and it needs a plan of how the team works. People don't have to have specific roles, so they can contribute what they feel. But definitely the team has to have a structure. Someone has to structure it. Otherwise, it won't work. The alternative to make an easy team is to assign roles. You do this, you do that, you do that. And then you get together and you see what's been done. And each piece fits together. That usually doesn't work because some people in the team do a poor job. Some people in the team want to do everything. And so it's difficult to make that work. You end up having 3 people doing nothing, 2 people doing something, and 1 person trying to do everything. And that's a shitty team. A good team is when there's a leader that says this is the problem, and you have to define the problem in a team. That's already a first step. Then when you've defined the problem, you have to create ideas around the problem, and everyone can create any ideas. No one has the right to anyone else. Everyone creates, and then everyone judges. You put the ideas up on a wall and you judge them. And then you only work on the ideas that got the most votes. Otherwise, you don't have a team. Working alone. I have worked alone basically my whole life. Unfortunately, I'm very used to working alone, which means that there is little structure to how I think. Because I can jump from one thing to another, which doesn't bother me because I remember where I jumped from and I go back to it. And so my days are built like this with these things going over each other. It's impossible to explain that to someone else, and it's impossible to share that with someone else because the rhythms of working are spontaneous. So I love working alone, but working alone is very limited. You work 5 times better in 2 or 3 people than by yourself. My best work outcomes is collaborating with 1 or 2 other people. That is the best. Otherwise, if it's bigger than 3, you need the structure of a team. You need a team leader, and you need a structure, and you need times and deadlines. Otherwise, it won't work. Do you have any international aspects in your daily work? Yes, I have many international aspects in my daily work. First of all, gathering information is always, by now, international, thanks to social. I look for information everywhere. I speak to people in different countries, in different cultures, depending on the problem, depending on the job to be solved. So there is an international aspect to my work, but I would definitely say that The international aspect is basically in gathering information and analyzing that information. That requires a whole series of cultural capabilities which are international in their basis. Do you have a lot of business meetings? If I'm lucky, no. Business meetings are usually an enormous waste of time. Business meetings are not teamwork. Business meetings are where someone comes along with a need, expresses the need in a very authoritarian way. People try to contribute or speak about different aspects of the problem. Everything becomes complicated. Everything has to be rethought through. I have found that most business meetings are very unproductive, but they're necessary. Otherwise, you can't deal with the client. So obviously, business meetings are fundamentally important, but they're usually not very productive. They're necessary. What makes you define yourself a professional? Well, you're a professional if you make your living doing whatever you do. You know, I mean, if you sing and people pay you to sing, you're a professional singer. I'm a professional communicator. Not because I like it or I'm good at it. I love it. I love what I do. I hope I'm good at it. I think I'm good in certain aspects of it. But I'm always paid for it, which makes me a professional. What makes you different from the other professionals in your sector, and why do clients choose you? What makes me different than other professionals in my sector is being a binational, having been born and brought up and educated in the United States, and having lived in Europe for 50 years. Those two elements give me perspectives that neither Europeans nor Americans have, and help me guide my clients into an international market, being careful of how they word what they do and how they express where they want to go, and so on and so forth. So that's what gives me my cutting edge. Also, having a fine arts background and teaching at a very important business school has united two things which are not always united. And one is this instinctive, creative approach to solving problems, which can be visual or structural or whatever. And the other is having a method, appreciating theories and appreciating methods. And these two elements give me advantage over simply creative people or simply managers. Managers are very limited by their theories and by their methods. And they have a great difficulty seeing what's going on around them in the world. I teach social theory at a university level, so that gave me an enormous way of looking at something as confusing as society and understanding what some things mean, what disruptions mean, what cultural disruptions are, how they affect the way people think, and consequently how they affect communication strategies, and then uniting that with the creative aspect of my life of having gone to art school and having a degree in fine arts has helped me know how to proceed, how to deal with people who do produce creative work, and knowing how to deal with them and how to help them produce their better work for one of my clients. Why do clients choose me? Boo. I haven't the slightest idea. You have to ask my clients. In Italy, clients choose me, I believe, because I come from an American culture. I teach at a prestigious university, and those aspects make my clients feel that they've made a good choice in working with me. Because clients aren't capable of judging the work you do. They don't know if you're doing a good job. Otherwise, they wouldn't need you. They need you because they don't know how to evaluate creative work. They don't know how to evaluate communications, marketing strategies. Usually, that's why managers are so limited often, because they boil it all down to methods and to documents and to data. And it takes an enormous amount of intuition to put various aspects of any communication problem together and make it work. So it's, I think people choose me. Not enough people choose me. I should have more clients. So, why the clients I have choose me? But I don't know. What made you want to become a professional in this sector? What made me want to become a professional, what made me do what I do, is passion. I was a passionate teenager. I was very passionate about photography, very passionate about society, about, how can you say, about critical social issues. I'm from, the generation of 68, so I was a hippie. I was very passionate about the changes in life taking place. I was very passionate about being a photographer, and that brought me into working at a very, very high level, on an international level, in corporate photography, and that gave me a lot of passion about more complex questions, which brought me into a deeper understanding of my profession, and it made me even more passionate, which is why I do what I do. I love what I do. I would probably do it for free, which would make me an amateur. But I'm a professional because I have to eat and provide for my family, which I don't always do as much as I would like to. But so I'm in this sector because I was a passionate photographer, and I fell in love with anything visual. And I realized how much I love visual things. Even reading is a visual exercise. I love reading. I read tons of books. And I love looking at anything. I will look at anything. I will look at a scrap of paper on the ground and think about it. I will pick up any object and look at it and have physical pleasure from looking at it. I love looking at things and thinking about them. I just have this tremendous satisfaction and pleasure in doing that. So that's why I chose this field. That's it. I'm finished.